Hello, let's talk about American versus British spelling. This is a fun lecture, so let's get started. American versus British spelling. Let's take a look at the word color, C-O-L-O-R, under the American column. Notice the U in the British column. Humor, labor, valor, honor, armor. All of these words are spelled without the U in the American spellings, but the U is retained in the British spellings. So why is there a difference here? Why do we in America drop the U, but the British retain the U? Well, the answer to that question requires a bit of a history lesson involving Benjamin Franklin, one of our founding fathers in America, and Noah Webster. Benjamin Franklin was born in 1706 in what was known as the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which is Boston, Massachusetts. Among other things, he was an inventor, a lexicographer. He also drafted the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution and is known as one of America's founding fathers. Okay, in 1768, he wrote some ideas about spelling and vocabulary and proposed that we drop unnecessary letters such as the U from certain spellings of words. And remember, this is coming from a printer's perspective, right? So he told his ideas to Noah Webster, who was born in 1758 in Westford, Connecticut, and attended Yale University. Noah Webster is considered the father of the American English language regarding grammar and spelling. So when he heard Benjamin Franklin's ideas about dropping the U, he initially said no. But in 1789, 21 years later, Noah Webster changed his mind and agreed with Benjamin Franklin that yes, perhaps we should drop the U and unnecessary letters from certain spellings of our words. When he printed his first dictionary in 1806, the American Dictionary of English Language, he dropped the U from those words that we saw on the previous screen. So that is why in American spelling, we do not spell those words with the U. However, modern British language and spellings still retain the U. So if you look at these words in the American column versus the British column, you see that the British still retain the U. Why? Because why would they want to do what the Americans do? There was a nasty fight between the Americans and the British. Remember that? A really brutal war. So Noah Webster decided that America should have a distinctive language as well as to make the language more practical. So that is why we do not retain the U. However, if you're like me, you might find yourself spelling some of these words or similar words with a U. In America, you will be counted wrong. However, if you happen to spell color with a U, then just realize that you have been influenced by the British spelling. But you cannot tell a teacher or a professor that you are still correct because you're actually spelling it the British way. That's not going to fly. So spell the words the American way when you are dealing with American English grammar and spelling. Okay, so here are more examples of the variations between American spelling and British spelling. If you take a look at the first column of words, lit and strove, the British say lighted and strived. Now in America, you will be counted as grammatically wrong. So again, do not try to use the British way of spelling and using the language. Look at the second row. We spell argument and judgment without the E. We actually drop the final E before adding MENT. However, in the British spelling, the E is retained. Take a look at defense and license. We spell that in America with an S. Those words are spelled in British with a C. Analyze and criticize are spelled with a Z in American spelling. But in British spelling, they are spelled with an S. Fulfill and skillful. Now, in American spelling, we double the L in these words. However, in the British spelling, there's only one L. It looks a little bit odd to us, doesn't it? Because we use the double L. Take a look at canceled and traveled. Again, in America, we have one L for canceled and traveled, but the British double the L for these particular words. Now, I will tell you that most Americans spell these particular words, canceled and traveled, with two L's. And when you do that, it's because you are being influenced by the British spelling. But in America, we actually spell canceled and traveled with one L. But how many of you, like me, are guilty of using two L's? Yes, I do. Look at diagram and program. We spell those words with one M. Again, because Noah Webster felt like we could drop unnecessary letters from words. But in the British spelling, you have MME for words like diagram and program. Look at dialogue and catalog. Again, we spell that with a G, and that's it. But in the British spelling, dialogue is spelled G-U-E, and catalog is spelled G-U-E. How many of you spell dialogue and catalog in that way? I do as well. I'm raising my hand. We have been influenced by the British spellings of words. Look at bank and check. In the British spelling, you have Q-U-E in the words bank and check. So it's really interesting to take a look how American spelling differs from the British and how we have been influenced by British spelling. But once again, when you are dealing in American classrooms and with the American education system, then you need to go ahead and spell the American versions of words. Okay, let's take a look at more examples here. Theater and center, spelled with an ER. The British spelling is with an RE. I spell theater the British way all the time. It's because of all of the literature classes I've had, I think, but I spell theater with RE. Take a look at argument and judgment. Again, we drop the E, the British keep the E. What about amid and among? Well, the British use amidst and amongst. And a lot of American writers do as well. Why? Because once again, we are being influenced by the British spelling of the word. Dreamed and learned. We spell those words with an ED at the end. However, the British use a T. Dreamt and learnt. Now, I've had a lot of students in the years to ask me which is correct. Now you know that in American spelling, we say dreamed and learned, but the British are the ones that use the T. All right? Backward and upward. That's how we say these words here in American spelling, but the British include an S, backwards and upwards. But a lot of American writers do the same thing as well by putting that S on the end. Encyclopedia. Well, the British still use the archaic AE diphthong, but we don't. Same with medieval. There is that AE diphthong again. But remember, Noah Webster decided to go ahead and drop extra letters from words to be more practical and to be distinctive from the British as far as language. Okay, so let's take a look at this word, rigorous. Now, do you think there is a difference between the way Americans spell it and the way British spell it, or do you think both cultures spell it the same way? If you said both, you are correct. This is how everybody spells rigorous. Now, what about rumor? R-U-M-O-U-R. Is this the way Americans spell it, or is this the way The British spell it British. Why? Because Americans have dropped that extra U. Okay, hopefully you have found this to be an interesting presentation. It was very interesting for me to develop and to go back and to look at a little bit of the history behind why Americans spell certain words the way that we do. Okay, thank you so much for joining the class, and happy learning.